I think we're good. So good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name is Fred. You can call me Fred. I'm a French guy from Canada, so I came from Canada to Athens to hack with you and create some Firefox OS application. So I'm a senior technical evangelist at Mozilla. What does that mean is that I'm there to give love to the developer and really to help you to be successful with the platform. So if you have any technical question today, please let me know. Please, I'm going to be there all day. You can tweet during the presentation. If you're on Twitter, you can reach me at fharper or on my personal blog, outofcomfortzone.net. The slides will be there right after. So let me start by apologize. I have no idea how to pronounce this, so thanks for Google Translate. I tried yesterday in my hotel room. I failed totally. So my presentation is going to be in English, also with my French accent. So you're going to have to pass a double kind of accent just to follow up my presentation. But today, I'm really there to talk about what you deserve as developers. As HTML developer, CSS developer, JavaScript developer, web developer, mobile developer, you deserve a great platform. You deserve Firefox OS. Firefox OS is an OS that we made for mobile. We made also for tablets. And on the desktop, we already have Firefox. So you can already browse the web. You can already use really nice application. And what is great is that with Firefox OS, you don't have to learn a new SDK. It's basically HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you use the technology you know. You use the technology that you use every day. Even if you're a PHP developer, even if you're doing Ruby, Python, whatever the technology you're using, at some point you may use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in your day-to-day job. So you are able to use those technology to create Firefox OS application. What is great also is that it's open source. So you can go on GitHub, you can go on the repository boot to Gecko, you can clone the code, you can fork the code, you can modify Firefox OS to fill your need, you can see how it's done. And we have a really great architecture. When it comes to Firefox OS, we did not totally reinvent the wheel, so we took what went well, like using Gunk. This is an open Linux kernel, and we used the driver. We removed what was not, or maybe what was slowing down the OS. So we removed the single vendor native API. We put Gecko on top of this. And you probably know Gecko because this is what's around Firefox day to day. And on top of that, when we're telling you that it's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, this is totally true because you have a top layer that we call Gaia. This is basically the operating system. This is an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So what you can do today, you can run on your device, on your simulator, you can debug the OS. You can use the tools because it's an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And it's pretty fast. And it's really, really, really fast for a platform using those technology. And there's a lot of benefits when we think about HTML5. So this is a handle distribution. When we talk about web application, the web is the platform. The web is the marketplace. This is simple technology used by a lot of developers day to day. How many of you are maybe old enough to know GeoCities page? Yeah, sorry guys. So for those of you that don't know GeoCities, those are really ugly web page that we were doing in the past. But even today, when you're going on WordPress.com, when you're going on any other platform, you don't even need to be a developer to be a creator, to create stuff on the web. So this is technology that day-to-day people are using. This is an evolution of an existing practices. Also, those are not new technology. When we're thinking about HTML5, this is not a new language. This is just the continuation of HTML4. This is a new version of the language with new features, with new elements that really give the powers in the developer's hand. And this is open, independent, and standardized. It's not Mozilla. Mozilla, we did not own HTML. We participate in it. We make it grow. We make it better with other people all across the world. So this is not something specific. This is not something we own, but this is something we work with. This is something we work for. Some facts about Firefox OS without going a little more technical stuff. We release in many countries. There is 18 mobile operators working with us, 6 hardware partners. We already have the ZTE open, the Alcatel One Touch Fire that has been available here. Really great device. We also have developer preview devices with Geeks Phone for some developers. Talk about the Peak, the LG FireWeb, and this is only the beginning. And when we think about Firefox OS, this is really for, it's aimed for emerging market and low-end market. This is to give an open alternative for people that may not want to use Android, that may not want to use iOS, or maybe it's not available in your country. Maybe you don't want to pay $500. So today you can buy the Alcatel One Touch Fire here in Athens for less than 100 euros. So this is really inexpensive for a really smartphone that really kicks some ass, let me tell you. So when we're talking about Firefox OS apps, what does that mean? If you have a web application today, HTML application today that is running in a browser, for me, you have a Firefox OS application. The only big difference is that you can have a manifest file, and basically the manifest define your application. So you can put the version number, the name of the developer, URL, the launchpad for your application. You can put some icons. You can put the default location or any other languages that are part of your application. And you can define some permission for your application. So today, to create a Firefox OS application, you can just add a manifest file. This is basically a JSON file to your web application, and you're going to have a Firefox OS application. So when we talk about Firefox OS app, there is two ways to create apps. You can have hosted app. So basically, you're going to put this on your web server. You can use GitHub pages to put your application there. And this is basically web technology. Maybe you're going to have web activities. I'm going to come back on this later. But you can also have package apps. And this is basically what we're used to when we're talking about mobile applications, that you're going to put every files that your application needs to use. Think about HTML, CSS, JavaScript, sound files, images. You're going to put this in a zip file, and you're going to upload this maybe to the marketplace. So that's going to be a package app. You won't have to host that app in your own server, and people's going to be able to install it and also use it day to day. So to build the Firefox OS app, you can use what I call vanilla HTML5 or HTML if you prefer. This is basically just using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that you know today. So you're not using something specific for Firefox OS. But you can also use different API. Regular API, privileged API, or certified API. So those are specific features that we had to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to give you the opportunity to use some specific part of the hardware, to use specific features that are not available in HTML5 right now. So those are not API that we want to stay with Firefox OS. So we are working with W3C, with other vendors, to be sure that those API will be at some point part of the standards. And if today the standards is not really what we implemented in Firefox OS, we will change Firefox OS to respect the standard, because the goal is not to make something proprietary. As you probably know, Mozilla is really not about those things. We're there to open the web, to give access to the web to more people, and this is really the goal of Firefox OS. We also have the Firefox OS Marketplace, as you can expect from a mobile platform. So you have the choice to upload your apps or not to the Marketplace. Of course, I highly encourage you to upload your apps to the Marketplace, because this is going to be the first place that user will try to find application. Because when you open Firefox OS phone for the first time, you have the Marketplace apps, and there's a lot of great apps coming from games to social media application to any kind of application. We have what we call web APIs. And a web API really empowers you to create great Firefox OS apps. So there is a lot of those. There's the level that we call regular API. So think about alarm API, ambient light sensor, archive API, battery status, geolocation, vibration API, name it. There's a lot of API. Everything is on the documentation online, so you can see how those API works. And because they're a regular API, there is no danger by using those APIs. So you can either create a hosted app or create a package app, and you won't have Mozilla to approve your application. We don't have to approve your application. Those are API that have no restrictions. So you can use it today in your application. Let me show you one example. The ambient light sensors. So this is really great when you have your device, you want to see, is there a lot of light near my devices? Maybe that can be great if you're building a news app and you want to change the background, because if there's not enough light, you may change the background to something a little bit lighter. If there's more light, to maybe something a little bit darker. So let me show you the code. This is basically JavaScript. So this is nothing new, this is not a new language. You're using JavaScript to find what is the ambient light sensor. So you're going to have an event listener and device light. And when that function, that anonymous function is going to be called, I'm going to be able to receive the event.value in lux. So that's going to give me a great information about the ambient light from my device. I also have other API, battery status. This is not something you can take today. You can have that information with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So again, what I'm going to do, it's only JavaScript. There is no magic there. There is no magic stuff. It's JavaScript. I'm going to call the navigator.battery. I'm going to check, okay, is the battery charging? How much time till my battery will be fully charged? How much time till my battery will be completely dead? Because that can be useful for day-to-day. If you're building your application and maybe you're building a game, you want to pause your game if the battery is nearly dead. So those are still JavaScript, really easy to use. Just a couple of lines and you can do basically whatever you want with those API. There's also what we call the privilege API. So those are a little hop from the other one. With those APIs, you won't have the choice to package the application and publish it to the marketplace. Because at some point, we're going to have to verify your code and be sure that your application are not doing some malicious thing. So in those APIs, you have the browser API, you have the contact API, device storage, TCP socket API. And you're going to tell me, Fred, I'm running in an OS with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Why would I need a browser API? I'm actually building, I don't know if you're using the service here, Remember the Milk. This is a to-do list application, or just think about Twitter, all those kind of applications that need to have some authentication before you use the API of your application. So if you're implementing that API, you need to ask the user to connect to your account, to his account, and give you the access to your application. That's going to be easy to do with a browser API. So basically, this is a iframe. If I'm adding the must browser keyword, I'm going to be able in that iframe to do a lot of things. Again, using JavaScript, I'm going to add an event listener on one of these events. Must browser load start, must browser error, locations change. So that's going to be quite interesting if I want the user to authenticate to my application, and I need to receive an API key that I'm going to receive in the URL. So I'm going to be able to add an event listener to the mouse browser location change, and I'm going to be able to grab the URL and do whatever I need to do with that URL. There's also the contacts web API. So basically, I can create a contact. Now you understand why this is a privileged API, because if I can play with the information of the user, someone somewhere needs to be sure that you're not going to do some tricky things with your application. Again, I'm going to say it again all during my presentation, this is JavaScript. This is the technology you use day-to-day with web application. I'm going to talk not that much about the certified API because those are basically for the OS application, but those are good to know because you have access to camera API, to permission API, settings API, power management, name it, you can read it on the slides. It's good to know that they're there because at some point they may become the privileged API. So when our teams work on those and they identify that maybe one of those APIs are not really high risk, so we can maybe move that API from a certified one to a privileged one. So this is good to know that they exist because at some point you may be able to use them in your application. But I have some web API that I would like to use, but those are certified API. I cannot really use them in my application. We also added something called web activities. And those will give you the power to help the user to do some tasks. So there is a lot of things. There is the browse API, the configure, the dial, the open API, the pick API. That may be one of the web activities that you're going to use that much, and the view web activities also. If I want to grab some pictures in my application, I won't give you access to all the picture. I won't give you access to all the information from the user. But you're going to be able to use the pick web activity. Again, JavaScript, I'm going to create a new Muzz activity. I'm going to say, okay, the name is going to be a pick activities, and I want to receive JPEG images. I would be able to receive anything else, PNG, name it. In that case, I want to use images. When I'm going to call that portion of the code, you're going to see on the phone what's on the right. So the user will have to do some manual process to get the images. So he will have to choose, is those images coming from the wallpaper, coming from the gallery, or I want to take a new picture. So this is not something you're going to control. But you will be able to have a non-success called in your activity. So if the user chooses images, you can also have an error if the user didn't choose any images. And you're going to be able to do whatever you need to do in your application with the images. So what's going to happen there is that you initiate a call and say, hey, user, I want to use an image in my application. The user will have to choose the right image from the wallpaper, from the gallery, or from the camera, and you will be able to receive the image and do whatever you need to do with that images. There is also the dial web activities. I'm not sure if I want you to be able to do some phone calls on my behalf as a user. So what is great with web activity is that, again, I'm going to be able to initiate a call, but the user will have to press the green button himself. So you're going to do a new Muzz activity, say the name of the activity is going to be dial. You can also already put some number, like some data, like the number. And what's going to happen? You're going to see the call application is going to be open, telephone application is going to be open, and the phone's already going to be there. The only thing the user is going to have to do is to press the green button. So that gives you power to do some stuff with the user, not against the user. There's also the new webcontacts contact web activities. This is the same principle like the two others or any other web activity. So you're going to start a process. In that case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new Muzz activity. I'm going to say, hey, this activity is a new one. But there's a lot of new activities that I can create. In that case, the type is going to be web contacts, contact. And I'm going to say, hey, I can already create some information in the contacts. My name, my last name, my email, my company. That's going to open the add form in the contact apps. But that won't save the contact. So the user will have to manually save the contact or delete the contact if he doesn't want to save it. So this is something really useful to creating your apps day to day and without having any permission issue. You can also receive some activities because now what I did is that I use the activities in my application, but I can be defined as a receive handler. Again, that's going to be some JavaScript. I'm going to set a Muzz set message handler on activity, and I'm going to be able to define, okay, if it's a pick activity, do what I have to do. So if some application wanted to pick an images, you can be one of the applications that will deliver images to the other application. But if you want this to work, remember I talked about the manifest before. The manifest is probably one of the files that you're going to use the most in your Firefox OS application because you're going to define a lot of permissions there when you want to use something. So the user know that your application is going to use those permissions, and we know when we're going to verify your application that you're using some feature of Firefox OS that you have to use too. So in that case, what I'm going to do also for some activities in my manifest file, I'm going to define an activities and I'm going to say, hey, if an application needs a pick activities, and this is about JPEG and PNG, I can undo this. And let's call index.html and go to the pick element. What is great is that every web activities that you created in a hosted app will work on Firefox for Android. So when I told you it's not just about Firefox OS, for me Firefox OS are not, Firefox OS apps are not Firefox OS apps, they are web application. This is one of the proof that you have it. Firefox for Android will run those applications, those hosted apps using web activities. So today, of course, you're there to create application, you're there to use your creativity to create web application, to create Firefox OS application. So how you can start? There is not something magic here. There is not something really complex. You don't have to believe in unicorn. Trust me, this is so easy. Basically, you create your application using HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Nothing new, nothing complex there. But you can also use some tools like Phonegap. If you use Phonegap, basically this is a framework that's going to give you the opportunity to, using HTML, create some native application for iOS, for Android, for Windows Phone, but you can also use it to create Firefox OS applications. So we're working with those guys at Phonegap to be sure that that's going to work very well, but I have already some developers working with Phonegap and deploy their application to Firefox OS, and it's working great. So any other framework would make sense too. It's not just about creating new application too. You can just port the application that you actually have. So any web application, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you can port those applications to Firefox OS. What you're going to need today to be successful, you're going to need, this is probably the tool that the only tool that you're going to need. You're going to need Firefox. You're also going to need the Firefox OS Simulator. So this is a free add-on that you can install on Firefox OS. If you have Firefox 25, you install the add-on. You're going to be able to debug your application. You're going to be able to use the simulator, so you don't need a real device to test Firefox OS. I would say that even at the beginning, you don't even need the simulator. You can test it in the Firefox OS, in the Firefox browser itself. If you want, you can go with the crazy stuff and use some beta version of what we call the Firefox OS App Manager. So you're going to need to use Firefox 26, the beta version, or 27. This is Aurora, the alpha version of Firefox. And basically, the Firefox OS App Manager is kind of the new version of the Firefox OS Simulator. What is great is that you can still use the simulator, you can still debug your application in the simulator. You're going to be able to push on a real device for those of you that have a real device. But you're going to be able also to debug on a real device. Things that you cannot do on Firefox OS Simulator. With the App Manager, you're going to be able to debug on a real device that use Firefox OS 1.2. So you're going to have to use a better version of Firefox OS. It is kind of stable, but it's still a better version. But you're going to be able to debug from your computer to a real device. So really nice if you want to test on a real device during the day, or maybe after for those of you that are going to win the phone, or just going to go to the store and buy a new phone. That's going to be pretty amazing tool to use. How many of you use Firefox today? Either you're using Chrome? Probably. Yeah. Okay, so for those of you that use Firefox, how many people know that we have Firefox web developer tools? And I'm not talking about Firebug. Yeah, not so many hands. So usually when we talk about tools in Firefox, people think about Firefox. There is not only Firebug. We have Firefox web developer tools inside of Firefox. You don't have to install anything. Those are really nice. Those are really useful as a developer. I use them all day long. At the console, I can do some inspection inside my application, but also inside my application, inside the simulator. I can debug my application. I know most of the time you're going to have two problems. Either that's going to be a UI problem and your CSS screw up something and that's not displaying well. So you can use the inspector. That's going to be a really useful tool, or a style editor. Most of the time, the UI will be great, but you're going to have some problem elsewhere, and that's going to be a JavaScript problem. So you're going to be able to use the debugger to do some step-by-step, to put some breakpoint, to watch some variables, some values of variable, and those things are all available in the Firefox web developer tool. If you have to remember one link for that presentation, this is the Mozilla Developer Network. So this is a beta version. This is the new UI. If you have an account, sign up for a beta version. That's going to be the new UI that we're going to have really soon. And this is probably the link that I'm using the most on the internet, maybe after Twitter. I'm a big Twitter fan. But all the documentation is there. Everything is there. For HTML, CSS, JavaScript, if you need help with Firefox, but if you need help with specific API in Firefox OS, this is the main link that you need. So you just go on Google, Bing, name it, type MDN or Mozilla Developer Network, Firefox OS, you're going to have all the information there. Really, really interesting link. Another thing, the Axe blog. So the evangelist team, where there are people at Mozilla, we're running that blog. This is a technical blog, so this is not about marketing stuff. This is really about technical article related to the web, related to Firefox, related to Firefox OS, to Firefox for Android, to web developer tool, to WebRTC, to web components, name it. Everything there is around web technology, there is technical, it's there. So you go to Hacksblog, hacks.mozilla.org, really great blog posts, and I think we have like 2 to 4 blog posts per week. By the way, if you have some technical that you want to share with other people, let me know. We're always looking for a contributor, and that's going to give you great visibility. We have a lot of readers on that blog. Something new, actually not Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow, it's not new, but now we're using more and more Stack Overflow. So with the help of those guys, we created the Firefox OS tag. So if you have any question, even during the day or at any time, go on Stack Overflow, ask your question with the Firefox OS tag, or just go on Stack Overflow and search for the Firefox OS tag. And maybe someone already asked the same question and already got an answer. What is great is that instead of doing one-on-one with you guys, it's not that I don't like you, but you can send me an email and I'm going to send you an answer, and I'm going to be able to answer one person. If you have that question on Stack Overflow, if it's not something private, if you're not having private code, or if you're not shy to ask your question in public, I can answer the question. But maybe I'm traveling and I don't have the time. Maybe someone else in the communities answers that question, sorry. And we are building an FAQ with that Stack Overflow program. So please go there, ask your question there. If you want a quick answer, you can also just send me an email with the link to your question. And I'm going to be more than happy to answer your question online. There's some candies also. So what I've shown you is only the beginning to really start to create your Firefox OS apps. If you don't want to start from scratch and you want to see some live code, we're a big fan of GitHub. We're a big fan of Git, or everything that is open source. You can go on GitHub and search for the Firefox OS boilerplate app. So this is a really great app with a lot of web API and web activities already implemented. Only the code, some comments, really useful if you want to see a live example, if you want to maybe copy-paste some code, or if you want to understand how is it working. You can clone the project, you can fork the project. If you go in the project and say, hey Fred, there's something missing, don't tell me there is something missing. Add it, push your modification, we're going to add this to the boilerplate, and this is really a work that we're doing all together. How many of you know JSFiddle? So this is really a great application to prototype if you want to share demos, code with people, if you want to ask you a question on Stack Overflow and you want to have a live example of what's happening with your code, you can use JSFiddle. But what is great is that the people behind JSFiddle, they are really big fan of Firefox OS, so they added 2 functions. If you put some code on JSFiddle and you open webapp.manifest, you're going to be able to install your application directly in the simulator, so you won't have to have the code locally, you won't have to download anything, you'll be able just to use the link to JSFiddle. If you happen fxos.html, you're going to be able to install the application on a real device or on the simulator. Again, I won't have to push my code somewhere on GitHub or on any other platform on my web server. I can just use JSFiddle. So really, really good tool from day-to-day use, not just for Firefox OS, but you have some goodies around Firefox OS. There's what we call the building blocks. So if you go on buildingfirefoxos.com, when I was saying that for me, Firefox OS, they're not Firefox OS app, they are web application, they're HTML application, we don't restrict you to use some specific UI guideline. At the end, you're not building specific application, you're building web application. But if you want to follow what we did in Gaia, in the UI of the operating system, you can use the Firefox OS building block. You have some HTML chunk of code, some CSS transition that you can use, and you're going to give the same theme to your application that we're using in the application that comes with the OS. How many of you know bricks? Like 1 or 2%. How many of you know web component? No, so web, yeah, always the same 2 people in the back. Yeah, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. So when it comes to web component, this is a really, I'm going to say really, again, nice feature with HTML5. It's basically a version of what we are working with web components. And Mozilla Brick, it's kind of new, but by using some tags, you're going to be able to add some features, to add some elements to your application. And what is great is that those elements will be rendered with the browser, not against the browser, not after the browser that's rendering the page or anything else. Those will be rendered with the browser. So this is really, really, really fast. So take a look at it, really great. What's coming next? I promise you that after, I'm going to give you some time to act. I'm going to stop talking. This is the end of my presentation. So you're going to have a presentation without cats. And this is something pretty amazing. I went to do the tourist yesterday, and there is a spot. There's so many cats here. I don't know what's happening. There was a lot of cats. I was at the restaurant. The cats was coming in the restaurant, and people were feeding them. This is pretty cool. I'm a big cat fan, so I like Athens just for the cats. It's not true. There's a lot of great things in Athens, but I was really crazy about the cats. I took too many pictures. So we have something that we're working on. This is still beta. This is called the App Maker, and this is basically a UI tool in the browser that's going to be able to give you the opportunity to create apps by doing some drag and drops. So, Fred, I like to create code. That's okay. Maybe it's not for you, but that's going to be really helpful to prototype something, maybe for customers or just for yourself if you want to showcase what you had in mind, just to understand if that makes sense. But that's going to be also a powerful tool for people that are not technical. Think about this. The web gives the opportunity to people that are not technical to create some website, to blog, to share with other people. So that's going to be a really great tool to create some Firefox OS apps. So this is still beta. If you're looking at the web, you're going to find the link. I also have the link in my presentation, but really great. And of course, this is only the beginning. So we're going to have more features to the OS. We're going to have more web API. Think about the calendar API. There is no way now to really play with the calendar. So we're going to have those APIs. The team are working on it. Let me tell you, the people behind Firefox OS, I know a lot of those guys. They're crazy coders. They really want the platform to be successful. They're putting a lot of time to really create those APIs. And this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. We launched the platform, the first OS, the first version, this summer. You can go on GitHub. You can play with the code. This is really just the beginning. And I took that picture yesterday. So I suppose with Google Translate, it's something like danger, be careful, or something like this. Okay. Kind of, yeah. Okay. So I don't remember why I put that slide. So it's just a pretty picture that I took yesterday. So there's a couple of resources: Firefox OS Simulator, the App Manager, Developer Network, really great resources, the Web API and Web Activities, Stack Overflow for around. Please go check the Stack Overflow. Ask you a question there. Even today, even if I'm there, say, hey Fred, it's kind of overkill to go on Stack Overflow and ask my question because you're there. I know. But don't do it just for yourself. Do it for other people on the web. You're quite happy when you go on the web somewhere and you're looking for a question, for a problem you have, and you find that someone had answers at the same question, and someone else answers the question. So please try to do this with Stack Overflow and just send me the link after. I'm going to be more than happy to answer the question. But if it's really, really urgent, we are at the end of the day, and you're going to be near to win the prize, okay, it's okay. Just come talk to me, and I'm going to help you to fix your problem. So if you have any question, please send me an email at farper@mozilla.com. Always on Twitter, at Farper, or Facebook. If we have the chance to know each other today, or LinkedIn, or name it, I'm there to help you. This is part of my job. This is my role. Please go on hacks.mozilla.com. Actually, I shouldn't say please, because you're going to go there, you're going to see the blog post, and you're going to love it. So that's not going to be a big deal for you. But just go there. If you have some time after, as I said, my slide's going to be in my personal blog. Even the recording is going to be there. So it's out of comfort zone.net, sometimes in French, sometimes in English, and most of the time in what I used to call in Franglish, because my English is not perfect, so I have some blog posts there. I think I have like 5 minutes left. If there is any question, comment, insult. Yeah, okay, so if there's something, if there's any question, please let me know. I'm going to be there all day. I'm the guy with no hair. Thanks.